I was scored the highest as far as risk was concerned. And then overnight, I was reduced to the lowest without actually going through the risk management board.
You know that quiet feeling when a storm is about to hit? That eerie silence before everything erupts? That was Buckingham Palace this morning. But here's the twist. The first thunder didn't come from the monarchy. It came from Prince Harry, scrambling onto a private jet in California, looking like a man who just realized he left the stove on back in London. And before you start wondering, no, Meghan wasn't with him. No smiling PR shots, no Netflix camera crew trailing behind, no carefully staged photo ops, just Harry, alone, panicked, racing back to face the one thing he spent years running from. Why? Because the palace just made it official. They're reviewing who gets to keep their royal titles, and this time, it's not background noise. It's not tabloid speculation. It's not another palace source says story. This is real. His name, his children's futures, even those carefully branded Duke and Duchess business cards, they're all hanging by a royal thread. The polls, brutal. 6 out of 10 Brits want Harry and Meghan stripped of their titles completely. 23% of the British public are actively calling for it. These aren't just numbers. This is a nation that's had enough. The countdown has officially started. So here's the only real question left. Will Harry fly back to California as a prince or just as Harry Windsor? Stay with me, because what's about to unfold is the kind of royal drama that's been brewing for years. And trust me, you do not want to miss how this ends. The palace strike. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you saw a monarchy move in complete silence and still shake the entire world? Because that's exactly what happened. The palace didn't just wake up one day and say, you know what? Let's check in on Meghan and Harry. No, no, no. They called for something far more surgical, far more devastating. A constitutional review of all honorary titles held by non-working royals. And you know what that means, right? It means anyone who cashed in on crown connections while sunbathing in Montecito just got a reality check stamped with a royal seal. The press called it a routine review. I call it the monarchy's version of new phone who-dis, but look at the timing. Just look at it. This all comes just days after King Charles held a quiet, closed-door meeting with his top advisors. No cameras, no press releases, just the king and the people who actually run the show. The topic? Streamlining the monarchy. Now, I'm no palace insider, but I've lived long enough to know that streamlining usually means one thing. We're about to cut someone off. And yes, every eyebrow in Britain went straight to Meghan and Harry. Even the royal staff didn't bother pretending this was subtle. A senior insider told the Times, and I quote, William believes the monarchy can't survive if titles are used as branding tools for personal profit. Let that sink in for a second. That's basically crown language for Harry and Meghan, sit down before the crown claps back harder. But here's the wildest part. This isn't emotional revenge. This isn't Charles being petty or William holding a grudge. This is the monarchy pretending they're neutral while delivering the coldest breakup text in all of English history. And suddenly, all those Duke and Duchess brand deals, they're starting to look a little temporary. Think about it. What good is Duchess Meghan merch if there's no Duchess? What happens to the carefully curated Sussex royal empire when there's no royal to speak of? One royal commentator put it perfectly. They wanted to take down the monarchy while simultaneously elevating themselves for financial gain. And that is unnecessary, to put it mildly. Do you see the irony? They left because the institution was toxic, but they kept the titles because the institution was profitable? You can't have it both ways. And the palace just called their bluff. Harry's panic mode. So let's talk about Harry, because the second that palace statement dropped, he snapped. According to multiple insiders, And we're talking people who've worked with the Sussexes directly. Harry was in full panic mode the moment he saw the words "royal titles under review" hit the BBC News feed. And yes, he was reportedly in sweatpants, because even rebellious princes don't want to lose their HRH in cargo shorts. Picture this: Harry storms out of a meeting at their Montecito mansion, phone in hand, eyes wide, looking like a man who just realized he left his wallet at the bar. Except in this case, the wallet is his entire royal identity. What does he do? He calls his father in a frenzy, demanding the palace stop this process immediately. But the response he got? Pure Buckingham ice. They told him, "His Majesty will speak to you when you arrive." In other words, don't argue from California. Get on a plane if it matters that much. And that's exactly what he did. No Meghan, no Netflix crew, not even a pity side-eye from the kids. Just Harry, boarding a private jet like he's auditioning for the world's saddest reboot of The Crown. Flight trackers caught him flying solo into Heathrow. No special reception, no red carpet welcome, just reporters waiting to see how far a fallen prince can fall in 48 hours. Think about the irony here for a second. The boy who once fled the palace for peace and privacy is now crawling back to save his title. The same title he claimed was a prison. The same institution he dragged through the mud on Oprah, on Netflix, in his memoir. And now he's begging them not to take it away. You really can't make this up. But let's be honest, did Harry actually think this day wouldn't come? Did he genuinely believe he could write "spare," trash his family on international television, sign multi-million-dollar deals using Prince Harry as the selling point, and face zero consequences? Because if he did, then he's not just naive, he's delusional. One palace source said it best: he wants freedom from duty, but access to the perks. That's not how monarchy works. That's not how any of this works. And now, Harry's learning that lesson the hard way. Mid-flight, alone, probably regretting every interview, every podcast, every carefully crafted soundbite that got him here. The receipts. All right, let's pull up the receipts. Because this isn't just about a nervous flight and a bruised ego. This is years of "we just want privacy," followed by "Spare," 6 Netflix episodes, Oprah, Spotify deals, and whatever other platform would hand them a microphone and a check. Remember when privacy was the excuse for leaving royal duty? Funny how that privacy turned into a full-blown content empire built off the same titles they claimed were ruining their lives. Harry called Spare his rawest truth. I call it the world's most melodramatic group chat leak with a publishing deal. And Meghan, Miss "I didn't know much about the royals," took a casual British introduction and flipped it into a 12-part documentary about her suffering. Oh, and let's not forget the alleged near-catastrophic paparazzi car chase in New York. A whole media circus staged to prove how much they're still victims of the machine. Except this time, the machine is tired. And even Hollywood is rolling its eyes. Here's my question for you. Why are we pretending that 2 people who walked away from royal life because it was toxic are still signing checks with IRH printed in gold? You can't run a victim brand and a VIP brand out of the same mansion. You just can't. That might fly in Netflix pitch meetings, but in Buckingham Palace, someone is finally saying, "Pick a lane." And judging by this week's energy, it's the lane without the letters HRH. But wait, it gets better. Because Meghan, in all her calculated brilliance, recently resurfaced in the worst possible way. Remember that infamous podcast moment where she said, "I didn't grow up knowing much about the royal family"? Oh, what a blatantly confident denial, because here's what palace staffers actually remember. Meghan reading royal biographies, Meghan rehearsing curtsies in front of mirrors, Meghan quizzing royal insiders about Diana's jewels, about protocol, about everything. This wasn't some clueless American who stumbled into Buckingham with a dream and a smile. She did her homework, and yet she goes on the mic with her soft-spoken vulnerability voice and tries to sell us the idea that she was just an innocent girl from LA who had no clue what a duchess was. We believed it once, maybe twice, but when that little soundbite resurfaced this week, people didn't just roll their eyes, they hit playback again and again. That moment suddenly became Exhibit A in the hypocrisy folder. And trust me, that folder is thick. Even worse, that Ellen DeGeneres clip from 2021 is making the rounds again. You know the one? Meghan curtsying to a champagne bottle, joking about royal formality like it's a bad improv game. Cute until the headlines hit. Now, it looks like mockery from someone who's panicking over her kids losing those exact titles. She said titles shouldn't matter. Now she's clinging to them like they're the last Birkin bag on Rodeo Drive. Do you see the problem here? The narrative is collapsing, and the public, even the ones who defended her, are starting to notice. The Clarence House showdown. So Harry finally lands, and instead of the warm royal welcome he might have fantasized about on that jet, he gets whisked straight to Clarence House. No reunions, no hugs, no Meghan popping out of a Range Rover in a beige trench coat for a surprise appearance. Just Harry, and a palace that's done pretending. Inside, a whole different world. Sources say it was tense from the moment he walked in. It was less family meeting, more corporate tribunal with generational trauma. Harry's first move? Straight from the panic playbook. He demands the title review be stopped immediately. And King Charles? Calm, cool, not budging an inch. He reportedly tells Harry, "This isn't just about you. This is about the future of the crown." Harry reminds his father that he's still a prince, that the public still sees him as Diana's son, that he deserves respect, consideration, protection. And King Charles pauses, looks him dead in the eye, and says, "You can't reject the institution and trade on its name." That, my friends, is a father-son mic drop if I've ever heard one. But then it gets even juicier. In walks William, unannounced, unbothered, and not a smile in sight. You could feel the frost in that room, and it wasn't from the palace air conditioning. Harry accuses William of being the one pushing Parliament to strip the titles, and that's the moment it all blows up. William fires back. "You made your choice. You left. You wanted freedom. Well, this is what freedom looks like." We've all seen or experienced our fair share of sibling showdowns, but this was giving Bridgerton meets Real Housewives energy. And when Harry shifted to pleading, actually pleading, for his children's titles to be spared, let's just say the only charity coming from that room was the palace, letting him walk out with what's left of his dignity. Because here's the harsh truth nobody wants to say out loud. Archie and Lilibet's titles aren't just ceremonial. They're leverage, they're brand value. They're the difference between celebrity kids and royal heirs. And Meghan knows it. Harry knows it. And now, the crown knows that they know it. One commentator nailed it. It's not a financial thing. Working royals do not profit. They do not use their names to make money. It's an honor to have an HRH. The fact that she's continued to use this HRH when they've been instructed not to, absolutely infuriating to Buckingham Palace. Meghan's meltdown. Meanwhile, back in Montecito, our Duchess of "I'm so done with the royals" suddenly found out the royals are done with her. And when I tell you the mood shifted in that mansion, I mean the scented candles probably stopped burning out of sheer awkwardness. Multiple insiders claim Meghan was furious that Harry flew without her. She reportedly called her PR team and lawyers within minutes of the headline hitting People magazine. The mission? Control the narrative, which is ironic, considering she's the main character in a story she keeps losing control of. But here's the twist. This time, The Hollywood crowd wasn't racing to pick up her calls. Not even the sources close to the Sussexes wanted to touch this mess, because after all the documentaries, podcasts, leaks, and pity parties, Hollywood is starting to get one thing loud and clear. The Meghan and Harry brand doesn't print like it used to. Even her usual media friends have other priorities now. After years of pressured support, the Sussex fatigue has officially set in, and no amount of carefully worded statements can clean up the fact that the palace now has lawyers and Parliament in its corner. For someone who built a whole narrative around being silenced, Meghan just got served the one thing she never expected: silence. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you saw Meghan Markle trending? For the right reasons? Exactly. The sympathy well has run dry. The public is tired. Even her defenders are starting to quietly unfollow, because you can only cry wolf so many times before people stop showing up with tissues. The brand empire crumbles. Now let's talk about what this title stripping actually means for the Sussex brand. Because it's not just symbolic, it's financial devastation. Think about every deal they've signed, every contract they've negotiated, every product they've endorsed or created. The value proposition was always the same. You're getting royalty. Not just celebrities, not just influencers, actual members of the British royal family. That's what justified the Netflix deal, reportedly worth $100 million. That's what made Spotify initially shell out millions for a podcast that barely produced content. That's what makes their Archewell Foundation appealing to donors. Strip away the titles, and what are you left with? Two celebrities in an oversaturated market. Two people whose primary claim to fame is complaining about the institution they left. Not exactly a compelling brand. Industry insiders have quietly been saying for months that the Sussex brand has been cooling. Spotify famously didn't renew their podcast deal. Netflix projects keep getting delayed or canceled. Speaking engagement that once commanded six figures are drying up. And that was before the title review. Now, imagine trying to pitch a new project when you might not even be able to use Duke and Duchess of Sussex in the marketing materials. Imagine the book deals, the sponsorships, the partnerships, all structured around royal titles that might vanish. One Hollywood executive, speaking anonymously, said, "The whole appeal was the royal connection. Without that, they're just another celebrity couple with baggage. And honestly, we have enough of those." Brutal, but accurate. And here's where it gets really interesting. If the titles go, does Meghan's carefully curated lifestyle brand still work? Does anyone care about her thoughts on wellness, motherhood, or fashion if she's not doing it from a position of royal authority? The answer, increasingly, seems to be no. Even her attempts to rebrand as a humanitarian and advocate have fallen flat. Because the public sees through it. They see someone who uses social causes as brand management, not genuine passion. And without the royal titles propping up that image, the whole house of cards collapses. The internet explodes. Once the news broke, the internet did what it does best. It went absolutely feral. And honestly, the reactions were a full-on buffet of chaos. You had die-hard royalists popping champagne on Twitter, Sussex stans writing threads about how titles don't define them while typing through tears, and the rest of us, we just grabbed popcorn. British tabloids had an absolute field day. One headline from the Daily Mail read, "Rebel Prince returns for his reckoning?" The Telegraph called it, "The Crown's quiet coup." And somewhere in California, Meghan was probably asking why they're always so creative when it's about her. On social media, the split was hilarious. In the UK, Strip the Titles was trending by lunchtime. People were calling it long overdue and the consequence of their Hollywood hustle. Meanwhile, in certain corners of the US, the hashtag Leave Harry Alone was trying to trend, but the energy just wasn't there. What's interesting is even some of their former supporters are now shifting. Folks who defended the Oprah interview are now side-eyeing the podcast comments. Netflix fans are saying the documentary was a little too curated, and the sympathy tank running on fumes. It's almost like the world is collectively realizing something. You can't drag the monarchy on prime time, monetize the drama, and think the crown won't eventually clap back. Even the algorithm has had enough, and just like that, the Meghan and Harry sympathy era is starting to expire, like milk left out in the California sun. Do you feel that shift? Because it's happening in real time. The narrative that protected them for years is crumbling, and there's no PR team strong enough to rebuild it. The palace's masterstroke. And just when the Sussex drama felt like it had hit peak chaos, Buckingham Palace dropped the final blow. A quiet, late-night statement. No dramatic music, no press conference, just a perfectly worded reminder from an institution that thrives on subtlety and power. Here's what it said. The review into royal titles is advancing with cooperation from both the Crown and Parliament. No individual is exempt from the process. That sentence, that one line, that's when everything shifted. Because for the first time, the palace wasn't just hinting. They were making it crystal clear. Titles are on the chopping block. And yes, everyone's fair game. By morning, every major UK tabloid ran with the same pulse in their headlines. Royal titles in peril. Harry returns too late. The Crown strikes back. You could almost hear Britain waking up in a mix of shock, schadenfreude, and disbelief. And across the ocean in Montecito, Meghan reportedly broke down crying to friends, saying, "They can't do that to my children." But here's the thing. They can. And according to one palace aide, the monarchy doesn't take, it corrects. How poetic, how devastating, how absolutely savage. Because this wasn't just Buckingham Palace slapping a title off a website. This was the Crown saying loud and clear, you can't cash in on us and then claim you're the ones being used. And if that message didn't land with Harry and Meghan by now, the palace just turned it into constitutional law. But let's talk about the brilliance of this move from a strategic standpoint. By framing it as a comprehensive review of all non-working royals, the palace gets to strip Harry and Meghan's titles without making it look personal. They can say, we're streamlining, we're modernizing. This affects everyone, not just you. It's the political equivalent of it's not you, it's me, except everyone knows it's definitely them. And by involving Parliament, Charles ensures this isn't just a family squabble. This is constitutional, legal, irreversible. Harry and Meghan can't appeal to public sympathy or claim they're being bullied by the institution, because the institution just said, this is about principles, not personalities. Checkmate, the William factor, huh? We need to talk about Prince William, because while Charles might be king, William is the one pulling the strings behind this entire operation. Multiple sources confirm that William has been pushing for this title review for years, long before the Oprah interview, long before Spare, long before any of this became public. Why? Because William sees what Harry and Meghan represent as an existential threat to the monarchy's future. He watched his brother and sister-in-law trash the institution on international television. He watched them sign deals that explicitly traded on their royal status. He watched them build a brand that directly competed with and undermined the actual royal family. And he said, enough. One palace insider said, William believes the monarchy can only survive if there are clear boundaries. You're either in or you're out. You can't be halfway royal. And he's right. The half-in, half-out model Harry and Meghan wanted? It was never going to work, because It creates exactly the kind of confusion and competition we're seeing now. Are they representing the crown or themselves? Are they working royals or private citizens? Are they using their platform for service or for profit? The answer kept changing, depending on what benefited them most in any given moment. And William watched that unfold and realized, this sets a dangerous precedent. If Harry and Meghan can do this, what stops every minor royal from trying the same thing? So he took action. Reports suggest William has been in constant communication with Parliament, with constitutional lawyers, with advisors who specialize in royal succession and titles. This isn't emotional. This isn't revenge. This is William protecting the institution he's going to lead. And honestly, it's probably the most strategic, clear-eyed decision he's made as heir to the throne. Because he's not just thinking about now, he's thinking about the monarchy in 20, 30, 50 years, and he knows that if Harry and Meghan's model becomes acceptable, the whole thing collapses, the reckoning. So here we are. The full picture of how the crown just checked Meghan and Harry laid bare. Harry's back in London, probably staring at palace walls that once felt like home, and now feel like courtroom panels. Meghan's pacing in Montecito, refreshing her phone every 30 seconds, waiting for a headline that won't destroy her. And those titles they once clung to like lifeboats, they're suddenly drifting out to sea. And truly, who saw this coming? Oh, right, everyone, with eyes and a Wi-Fi connection. They wanted freedom. They wanted their truth. They wanted Netflix deals in the morning and royal status by night. But this palace move? This is the quiet kind of justice that doesn't need a documentary or a podcast to be heard. It's the monarchy saying, fine, walk away if you want, but you don't get to take the crown with you. So the question isn't, will Harry leave London as a prince? The question is, did he ever really understand what being a royal meant in the first place? Because here's the truth they're learning the hard way. You can leave the palace, you can leave the country, you can even leave the family, but you can't leave with the legacy and expect it to follow you to Montecito like a loyal dog. The crown doesn't beg, it doesn't chase, and it certainly doesn't negotiate with people who monetize its pain. This was always going to end one way. The only surprise is that it took this long. So what happens next? Does Harry return to California empty-handed? Does Meghan finally realize that being a duchess without the crown's blessing is just expensive cosplay? Do Archie and Lilibet grow up as the kids who almost had titles? Or does the palace, in a shocking twist, offer them one final olive branch with terms so strict, so humbling, that accepting would be more painful than losing the titles altogether? Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, this royal reckoning is just getting started, and you need to be here for part 2. Because if you think this was dramatic, wait until you see how the Sussexes respond. Wait until Parliament weighs in. Wait until the real consequences start rolling in. So do me a favor, smash that like button if you're Team Palace or Team Sussex. Drop a comment telling me where you stand on this whole mess, and subscribe so you don't miss a single second of what happens next. Because trust me, this story is far from over. The crown just made its move. Now we wait to see if Harry and Meghan have any pieces left to play.